truth? Are you tired of being so confused? You feel like you're more fucked up than the lies on the evening news? Well, just step right in. We can talk about it all as friends. And if you want, we can hug and kiss and make up for the party ends. Agree or disagree, stop offering me. 'Cause I'm everything you want, damn sure what you need. I won't tell no lies, back up on the facts with truth. And if you can't get down with that, you must be somebody's dude. Come on, man. Can you feel the pain? Into him now. About this new world. Ain't no track. Papa's got a brand new eye.
One of the things that I hear most often, that I always try to help people connect the dots, is what is past is prologue. And although Shakespeare not my favorite, it's an interesting thing when you look at 1980 and the crack epidemic and what the United States government was involved in with the Contras.
No kidding.
So I don't understand why people are so shocked and they call Roseanne a conspiracy theorist. Because there's evidence in the past of the government getting involved in this, and there's plenty of books on this, and you can read this.
Hey, here's what I think. I love your show, by the way, Matt Spear, and
Thank you,
watched
ma'am.
you. Just discovered you about a week ago.
Ma'am,
And I
ma'am,
went, oh my
no,
God, this
you're-
guy's a genius. The facts he can
Oh,
spew.
God, I love you.
You can spew fact, and that's the sign of a genius.
Thank you, ma'am.
So I appreciate you asking me that.
So
And,
you just made my
I do
life.
remember back when they were bringing the crack cocaine into the black neighborhoods, and that proved that the CIA was doing it
Yes,
because
ma'am.
they were grooming that
Yeah.
that population.
Adjusting transmitter output.
This is the Don't Unfriend Me Show with your hosts, Matt, Leroy, Amy, and Olivia. Geopolitics, military analysis, and election coverage. Coming to you live on all major social media channels at The Dumb Show. Honest, direct, unfiltered. We can agree, we can disagree. Just don't unfriend me.
What's going on, everybody? I'm sorry we're late. We'll run a little overtime in the 10 o'clock hour. Had a conversation on the phone that will bring you in the loop too. And then Philip's been just talking nonstop since he's walked in. I haven't even had a chance to breathe. It's just nonstop. And that's great because we're on a talk show. No,
you're blaming it on me.
Of course it was me. Of course, I was like, oh, it's hilarious. I was in shorts and a t-shirt. I know he was coming this early and in my slippers and just pre-booking the show. And he knocks at the door. I'm like, hey, bye, upstairs, go and change. I'm like, I know there's no dress code, but I didn't expect boxers and slippers. Welcome to the Don't Unfriend Me show. We have Phillip Hamilton, senatorial candidate for Virginia, in the House, and we'll introduce him in just a second. Brian Cook will be here on March 26th, Thursday, a Marine Corps veteran, and one hell of a story about his family. We're not even going to tell you what it's about. We're going to wait for that. Jessica Lynch, POW from the Iraq War 2003, will be here to tell the real story of her experience. We have Damani Felder, my brother from another mother. It's hilarious. So I was talking to Damani, and I'm like, hey, dude, we got to get you on the show. He's like, how about I just come on every month? And I'm like, awesome. I'm like, what day do you want to do? And he's like, Friday. And I said, sweet, we'll call it Black Friday. So Damani's going to be here. We're excited about it. And he is our boy, and he is really pumped to be here every month. And then I'm going to be going on his show that he just started a live show as well and be on his every month. Barry Morgenstein says, hello, Phillip. We were just talking about you.
Hello back to you, Barry.
Yeah, Barry watches. Barry, will tell the story about this in a second. And then the older millennial from Twitter, really excited, a very, very strong conservative podcaster who is someone who I really enjoy watching. He will be here as well. But right now we have Phillip Hamilton in house for Senate. Welcome to the Don't Unfriend Me show, Mr. Hamilton.
Well, this is definitely one of the more casual podcasts that I've been on. So I appreciate you having me on today.
Yeah, exactly. Which shows have you been on in the past? I mean, I've seen a little bit, but for the audience.
Well, I've been on the Joe Thomas show, the Rob Schilling show. They're both based in the Charlottesville area. And our former lieutenant governor nominee, John Reed, who ran last year, I was on his show. He actually just launched a new podcast just 2 months ago. Okay. And that's been going on. Actually, earlier today, he had Scott Presser on.
Yeah, I know Scott, yeah.
Friend of mine. Scott and I actually, we met each other at George Mason University. I was 19 years old at the time.
No way.
He was 18, so he was just a freshman. And I knew him before he was political.
Yeah. So I talked to Scott 2 times in my entire life. 3 times, actually. And the first time was, hey, man, I really want you on my show. We have a primary coming up, and it's going to be, Winsome Sears and to replace Governor Youngkin, and it's just going to be huge. And we're going to be going to an event where we got to meet them all and all that stuff. And really want to get you on the show so we can help. We've got this many listeners, and however we can help. He's like, absolutely, I'd love to. But then I think the polls came in. So
then he backed out.
No, the 3 nights before, he's like, my wife called me. He's like, I'm busy, dude. I'm trying to win an election in Virginia. And I'm like, God bless you. Come on when you can. And this guy does so much, and he's in such high demand everywhere. So we want to get him on. We would absolutely love that. And he's doing great work, and I think it's awesome. So that's really cool that you know him.
Well, the good news is he's actually in Virginia Beach now. So he said, he's living in Pennsylvania currently.
Right.
But he said this gerrymandering amendment is so critical, so important, because Democrats are wanting to steal 4 Republican congressional seats by amending the Constitution unconstitutionally, because they did not post within 90 days in front of every county courthouse, the notice to amend the Constitution in 2025. And early voting is actually supposed to start 90 days after the second passage in the General Assembly, which was on January 16th of 2026.
Yeah.
When did early voting start? Well, started on March 5th. It's supposed to start on April 16th. So they are not following the constitutional process. And the Republican National Committee, Congressman Morgan Griffith and Congressman Ben Klein have filed a lawsuit in Tazewell County. And the Supreme Court just basically said, well, kick rocks, we'll make a decision after the election. So we have spineless judges who are not willing to fight for Virginia, even when Democrats are not following the Constitution.
When you look at this redistricting, a lot of people, and just to get right into it, I want to show one thing that Barry did for us, but this is what I love this stuff. So you look at redistricting, we know Maryland, we know New York, we know Maryland was kicked down by the Supreme Court. We know New York was found to be in violation of state's constitution. We know that they've redistricted in other states. But when we look at Texas, the GOP had every right to redistrict based on the one thing that the Supreme Court states you can redistrict on, which is based upon political affiliation and overall political ideology. And that's based upon voter registry and overall voting patterns. But Virginia doesn't seem to be that. I've looked at some of these lines. I've looked at some of these cuts that they're making into these districts. And this is absolutely racial gerrymandering. I mean, this is 100% racial gerrymandering. When you have some of these districts that are spanning from the east to western side of Virginia, what else could it possibly be? So your thoughts on this? Do you believe that even if this is passed, that SCOTUS from a federal level could jump in on this and say, listen, this is unconstitutional? Or do you really think this lives and dies with Virginia?
Well, I'm praying that we can get the federal courts involved, because, I mean, this is a bunch of nonsense that we're dealing with. And, you have 5 congressional districts, if this passes, that would be within, Northern Virginia. So you could drive 30 minutes and pass 5 different congressional districts. I mean, that is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And what does Northern Virginia, like Arlington, have in common with Powhatan, which is a very rural, suburban, district? One of the many that are outside of the Northern Virginia area. I mean, nothing. What do they know about the farmer issues and et cetera, et cetera? And I don't think, the congressmen who most likely are going to be from Northern Virginia, they're not going to be able to adequately represent these districts. And, it's going to be the most gerrymandered state in the entire country, because we're going to have Republicans have less than 10% representation.
It'd be like a 10-1 split, right? Is that what it would look like?
It's going to be 11. Well, so it's 10-1 split. So basically, there's 11 members of Congress,
right?
The House of Representatives, 10 are going to be Democrat, 1 is going to be Republican.
It's ludicrous considering that we're at what, 40% representation at least here, 46% in Virginia of
Correct.
conservative values. So, I mean, this is just what we see in California. It's what you see in all blue states. And it's no coincidence. I was looking at this, that the 14 states, including Washington, D.C., being a district and not a state. Little history for you. Somebody said, "Wow, really? I thought it was a state." Most people, surprisingly enough, unless you're from the East Coast, go, "I thought Washington, D.C. was a state." But you're talking 14 plus 1 district that do not have strict voter ID laws. Is it a coincidence that of the most gerrymandered states that are blue, that they happen to also be not serious and scrutinized voter ID laws in these states? And is this the whole ball game, right? This is what they're doing. They're doing this on the state and local level. They're doing this in the municipalities and district. This is at the federal level now too. When's enough going to be enough? We are from the Don't Tread state. I'm going to show you a couple of videos that want to talk about the Second Amendment and want to go ahead and have open voter registries and voter rolls. And when does this stop? What's it going to take? Is it you, or is it going to take something else from this country to finally say enough's enough?
Well, it's going to take all of us, all the Tea Party, conservative, MAGA. I mean, we got to unify, even with the moderates, even some of the moderate Democrats and independents. We got to unify together and say, hell no to this gerrymandering amendment. And we can have our voices heard on April 21st. So I'm encouraging folks to come out in force. Polling shows 52% of Virginians are against this amendment, which includes some of those Democrats and some of those independents who are joining forces with Republicans. We just got to get those folks out to the polls to kill this amendment. And my concern is if this amendment passes, we have a lawsuit in Tazewell in the Supreme Court said, well, we're going to make a decision after the voting occurs. Well, the Supreme Court could say, well, the voters have decided, so we're not going to interfere. The people have spoken. And I think that's just their cop out, and it's not just a matter of gerrymandering. It's a matter of rule of law.
Right.
The Democrats have violated the state constitution, not once, but twice. And we got to stand up for the rule of law in our Commonwealth. And the Democrats, of course, countered and say, well, look at Texas, they're gerrymandering. Look at Florida and these other Republican states, they're gerrymandering. But what are they not doing? They're not violating their state constitutions in order to gerrymander in their state. There's a big difference.
This isn't the first time. I mean, this happened under COVID law. I mean, you saw judges essentially usurping the power of the Constitution of the state. State legislature is supposed to propose these type of things, especially when you're amending, laws that are safeguards against how we go ahead and hold elections at the state level and non-federal level. And when judges come in and use emergency powers to change the way we do things, that is unconstitutional. And I hear a lot of people over the years, I've fought this for 5.5 years, stolen election. It's like, listen, when you steal something, it shows some sort of effort to do it in a cryptic or in a shadowed way. They did it in plain sight, and they did it through the judges, and they did it through mail-in ballots. And I think it does us a disservice when we say stolen, when you say, no, it was unconstitutional, and it was a little late in the tooth and long in the tooth before we realized that the states needed to stand up and say, wait a second, we have some bones of contention with the way 2020 was run.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you had Gavin Newsom, you had these other Democrat governors who are going out and saying, well, we're going to mandate that everyone gets a mail-in ballot. Even if you don't request one, you're going to get a mail-in ballot.
Even if you aren't registered, which is the truth, right?
Yeah. And that just opened up fraud, all over the country. Yeah. And, I was there on January 6th.
Yeah, I know. We're going to talk about that.
Yeah, I was holding the sign saying, stop the steal.
Right.
And, and Trump was right. There was a lot of a lot of fraud that Trump, Rudy Giuliani, and various others were trying to expose at the time. And of course, as we're seeing in Virginia right now, the courts back then in 2020 were not willing to, hear a lot of these cases. And it's just very unfortunate how the judiciary has worked against us when it comes to election integrity.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, listen, good luck. You just vote for this guy and it's all going to get fixed. So we're all set. That's what you do. I wish it was that simple. I wish it was a Mr. Smith goes to Washington and we could send one person to make a difference. But there have been exceptional lawmakers to go to Washington, D.C., who are still fighting the good fight. People like Eli Crane, who we discussed, and Luttrell, and you can, look that there were times when we looked at Chip Roy and said, okay, that's the person, or Marjorie Taylor Greene and said, okay, she's the person. And it seems that we consistently get let down. But the question is it too much responsibility for one person to make the impact that we're looking for? And does it come down to the state, the local, the mayoral races, the gubernatorial races, the state legislature, the senatorial races, that is where the most impact will change in our life? Are you in agreement with this? Are you a person who believes that you're, a federalist or an anti-federalist? Do you think big government is okay at the federal level and can influence change in the United States? Or do you really truly believe it happens at the grassroots down where you and I are right now?
Well, as a resident of Charlottesville, Virginia, I actually live 15 minutes away from Thomas Jefferson's Monticello. And of course, Jefferson, was an anti-federalist of sorts. Mm-hmm. He distrusted big government, as many of our other founding fathers did. Unlike Hamilton, I've no relation to Alexander Hamilton.
I was just going to ask you.
But I think it's a good thing I'm not related to a federalist, though, because that is not my view of our government. I think we need to have our government decentralized. I actually was with the Secretary of Education just a couple of days ago. She was speaking at Hillsdale College, and she was talking about her appointment, her phone call with Donald Trump when she was first brought into that position, her plans to decentralize the student loan program and various other aspects of our educational system. And she was talking about the performance over the decades, reading, writing, arithmetic. It's been dismal in our nation. And what we've been doing has not worked since Jimmy Carter. So Jimmy Carter, he instituted the Department of Education through executive order. I think Trump should get rid of it, the executive order.
Yeah.
And, I'm glad that Trump is taking this action on the federal level, because we got to shrink the size of government. It's unsustainable. We're almost at $40 trillion worth of debt, where we're going to be $50 trillion in the next 3 to 4 years.
Well,
it's unsustainable.
That's the fiscal cliff, right?
Yeah.
So 50 trillion is the point of no return. I mean, that's, you hear the doomsayers. Oh yeah, we go ahead and we gain a 3/4 of an inch of water, and everyone, Florida is going to be essentially no longer beachfront property. And there's always these doom and gloom type Chicken Little scenarios. But 50 trillion is it. And if we hit that, then you're at the point where our overall deficit to our overall projected revenue to our interest rate, essentially you have two major conflicts pulling every single dollar of revenue out. And then it's already based on in a facsimile. It's not real. We no longer have the gold standard. We no longer have the silver certificate. The petrodollar is gone. We lost that under Biden. And you have to ask yourself the question, if there's nothing in the coffers, then what the hell are we running on? And what we're running on is a paper system. And it's only going to take one of these people to call it in to say, wait a second, where do we go from here? So we may be protected by thousands of miles of water to our east and to our west, and frozen tundra to our north, and then inhospitable desert to our south. But financially is the one place outside of a nuclear weapon that is ultimately the biggest threat to national security. So I love the conversation. I mean, we haven't even introduced you yet. So let's do that. Let's go through and why politics. I get asked the question all the time, and it says, well, why don't you become a politician? You know it. You've worked in gubernatorial races. You've worked with state legislature. You've got a podcast that's somewhat successful. Do you think you could run for local politics? Yeah, I'm too smart. So I don't do it, because I know where I belong and where I don't. And where I don't belong is in a level of frustration that I was in the military. So I already know what it's like to want to put my fist to the wall most of the time. And I have a feeling that going into politics would be similar. Why this for you? You're a smart guy. You're a good looking guy. You're stand up. You're young. What is it that makes you want to serve at this level? And what's the reason?
Well, my political journey really started in my youth. I was actually 16 years old. I was in high school, and I was reading the Washington Times pretty much every day. My father, who was working for NASA at the time, had a subscription that came in the house, and there was a lot of great editorials.
What did you do for NASA?
He was an electrical engineer. He inspected components of the International Space Station and the space shuttle before it was decommissioned by President Bush.
Okay. Good for him. Wow. Awesome.
And before he retired from NASA, he was actually lobbying, members of Congress for funds for various projects. So
Okay.
he got the dabble in the political side as well.
Yeah, he cut his teeth in the.
Yes.
That's one way to do it, right there. You're going to meet a lot of politicians.
And but as in high school, this interesting story. I actually became the president of the Young Democrats, and this was the time there's a lot of folks who were against the Iraq War.
Yeah, yeah.
And I got thrown into that whole anti-war mix. And we actually had a debate at the end of my senior year. And it was hilarious because the majority of the issues I actually agreed with the young Republican chairman at James Madison High School. And he came over. He's, hey, Phil Hamilton, you over there. You should join us.
Right. come over to the light side.
Yeah. So,
but what year was this? So this was
back in 2005.
Okay, so this is when Democrats were still. I mean, 2006 was kind of like the big fall. I mean, we know what happened with Clarence Thomas. We know that this has been a long time coming with the Democrats and their lawfare. But at least at the local level and the state level, some Democrats still they were based somewhat in classic liberalism. I mean, that's all gone today, but at one point they were. So it makes sense. So you were involved in this. You're getting pulled to the Young Democrats side. You've got other people go over here saying, "Come on over here," and then what?
So after that, I joined the college Republicans at George Mason University. And I actually am related to George Mason on my mother's side of the family, which was pretty fascinating to learn about that when I was growing up.
Okay.
And, George Mason, he wrote the Virginia Declaration of Rights.
Yes, he did.
Which was the precipice for the First Amendment, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of religion. And that was tied to George Mason's words. And he also started the Fairfax Militia, and his son was also involved with the Fairfax Militia. So I've been to various historical sites related to George Mason, including Gunston Hall in Lorton. And interestingly enough, in San Francisco, there's a military base named after one of George Mason's grandsons. So I've been over there as well.
Mm-hmm. So probably Mason would roll over in his grave. He saw where Fairfax was today, yeah?
He certainly would be.
Yeah. I mean, at least the school system, too. I mean, that's a whole nother conversation. We got into it with Loudoun County and Fairfax and the LCPS, and we're a part of that. Well, Matt Walsh came on down here, and then Brandon Michon was obviously the angry dad, and the retribution from that. I guess it's a topic that I want to move into after we kind of intro is it seems that under Joe Biden, the states became almost like inspired to bend and twist the rules of law when it came to its constituents, and they became empowered to do so. And I think that's the one thing we're going to have to figure out in the next 2 years. If 2026 goes the way it needs to go, then the next 2 years is how do we bring the states back to following their constitutions, following the law, and have some oversight when it comes to these influences. We're going to talk about this. We talked about it before the show of some of the things we're seeing, but I guess I continue want to go with you and where you're at. So you get this influence early on. Your father is an engineer, so he's a pragmatic father. He's, he believes, obviously, I would assume, wash your hands at dinner, sit up straight, go ahead and say please and thank you. You're instilled with, doesn't matter Democrat or Republican, but the patriarchal and matriarchal society, and he's giving you all the things, the white picket fence and the Western civilization 101. When you get out from that, a lot of kids tend to break away from their parents and rebel a little bit. Did you have that phase, or did you just continue on the path where you finally said, okay, this is what I want to do, this is where I want to be, and I'm going for it?
Well, I certainly had my rebellious phase, as most teenagers do.
Yeah, we all do. Exactly.
My father, he was a Republican at the time, and I think me supporting the Democrats when I was in high school was part of that rebellion. But I corrected that, fortunately. But another interesting fact about my father, he actually immigrated from Iran, from Tehran, before the Shah was overthrown in 1979, and now, we're dealing with the Iran war.
Right.
And this is a very historical time for our nation. We're going to see how this conflict pans out, but the Ayatollah has been killed within, the first hour of the conflict. And, we're going to see if the next, leader, if he's still alive, who knows? I mean, we're going to find out. But I think the regime is going to fall. We got to keep maximum pressure on, and there's some folks who are not happy that Trump is embroiled with this war. I mean, I've been watching Tucker Carlson. I've been seeing, what him and other people have been saying, but this is a bigger geopolitical battle that's being fought. I mean, this is also our war with China, because China has been deeply invested in Iran. They get a lot of their oil from there. And if we can turn it into a friendly nation, we're really cutting off that spigot to China. So you have to look bigger. And
it's basically a reverse proxy. So as Iran has used the proxies in the JIP, the Houthis, Hezbollah, ISIS-K, Al-Qaeda, other groups to fund proxies, the United States works on a global level. And instead of working on a sector or a certain district, they work on continents. And by using this pressure against Iran, you're ultimately taxing Chinese weaknesses, which is asymmetric warfare at its finest. And this is what people think Iran's doing to us. But fuel, as it was an issue for the Japanese, it's going to be an issue for the Chinese. And this is why they've put embargoes and held back and blockades against any of their oil leaving to foreign exports. You're seeing lines around their gas stations that are 300, 400, 500 cars deep. And this impacts China. This impacts when the people don't necessarily want to go to work, or the people don't go to work, or the people start revolting, and which they've done in China before. You can see this impact. So I'm with you 120% on this. Tucker's got his own problems. He's going to have to explain his text messages to IRGC commanders, and good luck with that. But I've kind of been on that side of hitting him pretty hard, and other people who are denouncing this and trying to spin a narrative that I think is un-American. I don't think you have to support a war to be an American. But I think when you actually don't support our troops and speak out against them religiously, I think that's pretty un-American. But that's just me. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I mean, there's so many implications of this conflict, and I know that Trump campaigned on no more wars, and but he's been looking at this. Iran's been at war with the United States ever since
47 years.
Yeah, this has been an ongoing thing. Trump is not passing the buck to the next generation. He's going to finish the job. And I support him 100% on this. We got to do it.
It's interesting when you say ran on no more wars, and I try to go ahead and correct people. For someone who covered his rallies ad nauseum, and someone you obviously have been to many of his rallies, peace through strength is really what he ran on. That was first and foremost. And if we've already been in an open conflict with Iran, go back to 1986 and look at Donald Trump's words on Iran. And he said the same thing. And you hear words like Kargil, and you hear about the Shah, the Ayatollah, the mullahs, the clerics. He's posted these things ad nauseum throughout his life. And if you ever want to see, I love when people are like, Project 2025. And it's like Donald Trump has laid out his strategy for what his administration would look like since, early 82 on Oprah and hundreds of other shows. And he was always brought in because he always saw the forest to the trees. He would always have a vision of, listen, don't project your hand. Peace through strength. It's always important to remember the values of the United States. These type of things he's always been about. So it's not much of a surprise that he did this. And if you don't do this, where do you see the Middle East in 10 years? Well, you see it looking a lot like Europe. And you look at the influx of immigrants and constant war, constant conflict that Iran is sowing is losing Europe its identity. And that will expand into Western civilization as well. We are the last bastion of Western civilization because it's no longer Europe.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So, anyway, good topic.
One thing I would like to mention, and who knows if Tucker Carlson would even listen to the show, but if he is, I do challenge him to bring on some of the Iranian protesters and interview them on his show. Because they've lost their family members. I mean, tens of thousands of them were killed. And I was listening to one of the speeches at the UN because one of the protesters was invited to speak about the atrocities that was occurring in her home country. It's just absolutely devastating. They were hunting people down in hospitals, killing. I mean, these people they're struggling to survive. They'd already been shot. They'd already been beaten down, and they went and summarily executed folks inside hospitals. I mean, that is a human rights violation of the many that this administration's been doing over decades.
It's interesting you mention that, because Tucker doesn't watch this show. And I know for a fact that Tucker absolutely would never have me on. And because there's a thing that Tucker does, and this isn't a Tucker bash fest, because I've been watching Tucker since as long as I've been watching Bill Maher. Since I was a little kid, I used to watch Tucker Carlson on Crossfire, and I've seen him when he was MSNBC, and I knew when he was CNN, and I've watched him throughout his life and his career. And the one thing about Tucker Carlson that I'll say about him is he's extremely intelligent. There's no doubt about it. He's very smart. He's very articulate. And he's affable when he wants to be. And those are all my positives. But my negatives are that he just like Iran, works proxy, and he brings on guests that can affirm what he thinks without him actually saying it. And then he allows them to go ahead and platform his ideas. And, well, really, I'm just asking questions. No, you're not. You know what this is, a neo-Nazi. The guy hates Jews. Everybody knows he hates Jews. And now you're going to put him on, and you're going to let him say these things so you don't have to hold to account. I don't appreciate that. And I would rather have him have people like you on, or Nick Freitas on, who can challenge him and say, wait a second, I don't agree with everything you say just because you have millions of followers. I disagree with some things fundamentally because you have millions of followers, and the things that you're saying are untrue. He's going to have an account. Candace is going to have an account. Megyn Kelly's, they're all going to have an account at some point. Some point, people are going to say enough. And that's the one thing we got from Rush Limbaugh. He never betrayed the viewers' trust. And there's just not enough of them left anymore, unfortunately. So,
and Candace Owens is another one. I mean, she is completely off the rails. I watched her first episode trashing Erica Kirk, and she is going off saying, well, I have the receipts. She's an Epstein. I mean, she always has the receipts, but she said, her grandfather was a criminal. I'm like, and there's the blood guilt. And Tucker Carlson says, I'm against blood guilt. Well, he should be telling Candace Owens, hey, stop, accusing Erica Kirk of blood guilt. I mean, it's just complete nonsense.
It is. I like the funny thing, is you haven't been watching my show, and that's the way it is. This is a tough business, and it's tough to grow in here. And people look and say, why should I trust this person? And they have to have a shtick. If they don't have a shtick, I don't care how smart you are. You've got to have something. Like Andrew Wilson, he's the smoker, grumpy guy with middle-aged hair and receding hairline and a little bit of a beer gut, and men can relate to. You've got, Candace Owens, which made her really unique, she wasn't that great at putting two and two together, surprisingly enough. She had one platform, which was the degeneration of the black families in the urban neighborhoods, in the inner cities. But she was African-American, and it was really unique to hear a black person speak GOP policy. And it's okay to say those things. Chicks on the right are two middle-aged women who have a glass of wine and are the based view. So everyone has your shtick. Mine is grumpy old white guys who have tattoos. I don't know. But everyone has your shtick that makes them successful. And you've got to know how to work that to get into this and steal market share from other people. I'm not interested in any of that. But I will tell you, I will take what we've done on this show is we were calling out Tucker Carlson 3 years ago. We were calling out Candace Owens 3 years ago. I was calling out Marjorie Taylor Greene 3 years ago. Nobody else was doing that. So
you're telling me I should have started listening to you 3 years ago.
You should have listened to me 5 years ago is what you should have done. And you probably already would have won your last race. No, I'm kidding. I wish that was the case. I wish I had that poll. Vote. Yeah. I mean, if I could do that, then, it's not that all of our problems would be gone, but it certainly would solve a lot if we could just wake people up with a red or blue pill, so to speak. All right. So we digress. You're someone who I can talk to for 20 hours. What happened? So you get out, you go to college. What did you do before this? And then has it always been politics, or was there something in between that kind of, you chewed on the fat for a little bit before you decided to go ahead and dive in head first?
Well, when I was at George Mason University, I actually started my own tutoring business. So I have an identical twin brother, Jeff Hamilton, and he was studying biology.
That's great.
Yeah. And, we took some classes. We actually took calculus 1 and 2 together.
Jeez, my daughter needs to talk to you. She's in trig, and she's just like,
well, actually, I'm not a big fan of math myself.
Yeah. I just tutored. I dabbled in it.
More specifically, like advanced, like the derivatives and antiderivatives. Okay, this is getting a little too complicated for me.
Yeah, me too.
My father wrote 5 math books, and I was like, I didn't want to disappoint my father and be like, hey, look, I can understand some of the things. And I was like, at some point, I'm like, I'm studying criminal justice. I'm studying pre-law. Let me focus on my major. So I had to move past that hump. But it was great being able to go to college with my identical twin brother, and and with Scott Pressler, and be friends with him during my whole college journey at the time. And I still talk to Scott Pressler some of the time here and there, but I know he's a busy guy. So
yeah, you need to have him come on the show.
I can help you do that.
Please.
Yeah.
We really want Scott because we followed him a long time. I was giving him props back in Arizona with Kerry Lake long before he kind of made the scene. And I really like Scott. He's a good dude. He really is. But anyway, go ahead.
And when I was at George Mason, I got in, as I mentioned earlier, I was involved with the college Republicans. And here's the interesting thing. Barack Obama, or Barack Hussein Obama specifically, came to our college campus at the Johnson Center. There were about 3,000 people there. And the college Republicans, we decided to protest. So there was 50 of us against 3,000. But we stood strong. He's a socialist. He's talking about health care for all. And that's not something I support.
Right.
It's not something that other conservatives support. But, we stood strong. And, and of course, there were some folks who called me a racist. How could you not support a black man for president? It was a historical ticket.
How could you ask me how I could based upon his race?
Yeah. You got to look at his policies.
Right.
I actually liked Herman Cain. I liked his 999 plan.
Yeah.
And with the fair tax plan that he was putting forth. But of course, Barack Hussein Obama put a hit on Herman Cain because he said, hey, this is a Republican who could take me out. So they had this, sexual allegations, and that, killed his campaign early on. So I ended up working on Mitt Romney's campaign after he became the nominee for the Republican Party. Went to some of his rallies, door knocked for him in the Richmond area.
How was that? How was working with Mitt's not my favorite human being. But back then he was. But back then he was okay. He got broken. But what were your thoughts on? Most neocons did after Trump 2016. But go ahead. What was your thoughts on Romney?
Well, we had the rally behind our nominee, and I thought he was moderate. I wasn't too thrilled about that, but he was better than Obama. And
isn't that it's kind of like everything after Reagan. Well, he's better than Dole's better than that's the way it was.
Yeah, but but he didn't really excite the base, I would say. And I know there were some folks who were skeptical of him because he was Mormon. And, and of course we respect religious freedom in our nation, but, having a Mormon as president, I can understand why some folks were skeptical of that. Because, I've met some Mormons, actually Babe Buchanan. She was a neighbor of mine. She lived 3 houses down from my family and I when I was growing up. And she was the sister of the former presidential candidate, Pat Buchanan, and she'd be on CNN all the time. And, so I'd say, oh yeah, I saw you on CNN, and, she'd be out for a run, and we would just like talk politics here and there. So that was interesting. I went to some of the Sunday school classes she taught at the Mormon church in Oakton, Virginia. But it was interesting because then they sent some of the missionaries to my parents' house. And they were like, oh, would you like to convert to Mormonism? No, I was there just to support my friend because I was friends with her youngest son, Stuart Buchanan. I was like, I'm not looking to convert. So,
right. Yeah. How many votes? No. Okay. Yeah. I'm good. So you did all that, and then your first campaign that was for you, where you're on the ticket, or at least the GOP. Primary, or the firehouse, or however you want to see, we were talking about earlier before. What was your first race? That was just you, not necessarily working with somebody else.
Well, to lead up to that, actually, I worked on Rand Paul's presidential campaign.
Interesting. Okay.
After Mitt Romney. So this is in 2015.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was sent out to Des Moines, to Iowa City, to Reno,
oh my gosh,
and Las Vegas.
Okay.
But when I was working in Vegas, that's when Rand Paul dropped out because Trump was rising in the polls, and he's like, I can't fight this.
Taking everybody down.
Yeah.
It was just like a scythe. Just you see that meme where it's like the Reaper knocking on the doors, and then there's a blood trail to the next door. That was Trump in 2016. He had like 30 doors. He just took everybody down.
Yeah, I've been rewatching some of the debates, and
So
they're
good.
very entertaining.
So good. They're so dude. I've been doing that. Like I can go all the way back to Nixon and Kennedy. So I do that all the time. I watch old debates, and I just love. Like I always go back to Reagan or any Reagan and Gorbachev, simultaneous, galley or speaking event. Those are some of the greatest ever. They were so good. They fed off of each other so well. How are your thoughts on Rand Paul and Thomas Massie now?
Well, I mean, I don't agree with everything that both of them, have been putting forth, but on the fiscal side of things, I mean, they're certainly right. There's more cuts that need to be made. I understand they're critical of the president because our deficit continues to grow. It's like we need to shrink the deficit. We shouldn't allow it to continue to grow. And of course, the Democrats have been making it difficult for us to make cuts. So I understand the political landscape that Trump has to deal with at this point in time. So on the fiscal side, I agree with them, but I know that they're both against the Iran war. I don't agree with them on that. They're not seeing the bigger picture.
I think they would be against any type of conflict. It doesn't matter what it is. And it's amazing when something gets in the news 24 hours and 7 days a week when it's declared a war. But we don't talk about the 16 different countries that we were bombing the living heck out of. See, I said living heck. I almost cussed, but I didn't. You're working. You're magic. But Obama did, and Biden did, and you can go ahead and we were running proxies, 16 different countries we were running proxies against. So, I understand that this is the latest and greatest thing, but remember this same reaction, this same vitriol. They were talking 30 days ago about Venezuela. It was going to start World War III. There was going to be a massive, Russia was going to get involved. They were going to annex, we're going to go and annex Cuba, and then Colombia was next. Well, that lasted 72 hours. And now, for the first time in 7 years, the U.S. Embassy just put up the American flag for the first time. It just crest the new dawn for the first time in 7 years. That should be a celebratory win.
Absolutely.
But I guess it won't be. So, okay, real quick. Your dad was Iranian. He was Persian, excuse me. He was Persian, yes?
Yes.
Okay. Mom was, sorry about that.
So my mom was from Nebraska.
Holy crap.
And I was actually born in Norman, Oklahoma.
Right? You're a Sooners fan?
Actually,
No,
I'm not.
All right,
So,
good,
yeah,
good.
I
can like you.
Yeah.
That's good. I'm a Buffs fan, so they had one great year a couple of years ago. Now they're doing like crap, but that's okay. All right.
So my parents, they met in Oklahoma, and they got married. My mom was pregnant when she was 19, and she had 7 kids. So I'm one of 7. So we got a big family.
Good for you.
And we're not Mormon, clearly, as I mentioned earlier, but we're not Catholic either. So, but we are Christian, okay. And I'm actually a Baptist.
Okay. So you're Baptist. Cornhuskers or Nebraska? This is a Sooner. It's okay, Riley. It's fine. She's like, Cornhusker? No, that's Nebraska. This is okay. And Oklahoma and Nebraska don't love each other, and neither do Colorado, Nebraska, and Oklahoma. There's a big rivalry there. You know why it's windy in Nebraska, or why it's windy in Nebraska?
Well, it's flat over there, that's for sure.
Yeah, or it's because Oklahoma sucks, right? And that's the
just suck all the air out.
That's right. That's right. All right, so we're gonna get to this because I really want people to learn about you as a candidate. Like I want to know, the trials and tribulations of politics and what you've gone through from the smaller level, and now, I mean, Senate's big, dude. That's huge. You and I talked about this. These are $2 million races. Even just if you're not getting into a competitive battle that you've got to put up. And some of these are uncontested. Some of these local state races are uncontested because for some reason the Virginia GOP doesn't seem to want to get a dog in the fight sometimes. So can you walk us through how you got here?
Yeah. So after I worked for Rand Paul's campaign, I lived in California for 4 years. And in 2020, of course, we had the fake pandemic. And Gavin Newsom had all these unconstitutional COVID mandates. I mean, I remember I was in Oakland, California, and they said, no ambient music allowed. And they had it on these big neon signs. And I was like, what is this? Like, you can't play music on your phone or in your car because there's a pandemic. I mean, all the mask mandates, all the vaccine mandates. And, I said, enough is enough. I'm going to go back home to my Commonwealth. I'm going to fight to take back my state.
What were you doing in Oakland?
Well, I actually had a legal services business in California. That's where I started it. So I had to serve summons, subpoenas, court filings at the Oakland Immigration Court. I did some other work in San Francisco, Santa Cruz, Monterey. So I was all over the Bay Area. I actually had to serve legal summons to LinkedIn for Mark Zuckerberg at Facebook at the headquarters of the Googleplex.
No way.
Yes, I got to see all those sites.
Okay.
Including
All right.
the T-Rex that's on the Googleplex. That was pretty interesting to see.
Okay. Oakland. Oof.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's rough.
even the sports teams left. I mean, you know.
Oh,
what
yeah.
I mean, geez.
I'd see all the homeless under the bridges,
Oh, it's
all the
horrible.
trash.
Oh,
I mean, I'd see like the trash would be higher up than I was.
Yeah.
You know, it was just atrocious to see. You know, all the filth that was in San Francisco and Oakland.
Yeah.
And you know, now when the communist president of China came and visited San Francisco, Gavin Newsom cleaned it up.
Right.
Just for the communists, but not for the everyday Americans.
Wasn't that insane? Sorry, I'm looking for one of our donation things. It's fine. So so we did. I mean, it's interesting you say this. $10.80. Deborah McLaughlin. I knew a donation was coming through, and I had to find it, and there it is. Deborah McLaughlin, $10.80. They don't usually donate when people are on, especially celebrities and candidates, because we don't want them feeling that we're using you to raise money. We never want anyone to feel that way, but you're going to be on for a bit, so everyone's going to probably start donating now. But 1080, thank you so much, Deborah. So you're in Oakland. I understand what that feels like. I grew up in Los Angeles, Ventura County, and then I was in Bakersfield, and then I left. I left for a whole bunch of time and went overseas, served in the military, did all that, then came back to California and started working for Apple. And I worked in 4 different locations and ran 4 stores for Apple: Northridge, Topanga, Valencia, and Bakersfield. So I got to go to San Francisco, Cupertino area a lot and see the needles, see the crap on the floor, and just the degenerate nature of these cities. What did you take away from that? Like when you're in California, you get to see lipstick communism, lipstick socialism, which it really is. How did that shape you as a candidate coming into Virginia, realizing that they could California your Virginia, and they are?
Yeah, I think that experience was really important for my political experience, because I got the experience what it was like to live what I felt like was a communist, socialist, country. I'm like, gosh, I mean, California, it wasn't the America I recognized like growing up. I mean, it's just a completely different world. And, I just remember seeing people yelling at others like, oh, put on a mask. Like, even outside, there was this Indian family, he had his 5 kids with him. And there was this guy berating him. It's like, you're endangering everyone else by not wearing masks. I'm like, we're outside. What are you doing?
Yeah, right.
It's like, get off their case. But I've definitely, come back and pushed. There's a school in Northern Virginia. I went just to use the restroom. I was, traveling, and some lady said, "Oh, you need to put on a mask before you come in here." And I told her, well, you're a mask communist, and I'm not going to do that. So I said straight to her face too. So out the door. And there's a lot of times I'd serve papers after I moved back to Virginia. And they say, these chiropractic offices and other medical offices, and they say, mask mandated. And I just go in and say, here, you've been served for medical records, but I'm not putting a mask on. See you later.
Yeah. Well, you had to. I mean, when you remove logic from complexity, it's useless. It's emotional drivel, is it not? I mean, when you can't look at a problem and say, okay, let's weigh the common good with the common bad, and let's come up with a solution. Yes, COVID is dangerous for those people who are 65 and older with predetermined conditions. Yes. And those people should weigh very heavily with their physical care provider what is best for them. But can we stop pretending that this is a common cold for 90% of the people out there who have absolutely no issue with it, who are reasonably healthy? But this is what happens with government control. And they're allowed to prescribe the level of fear necessary for you to feel. And anything that isn't prescribed that you feel is irrational. So for instance, well, they're going to take our guns away. Oh, they're not going to take your guns away. What's the first thing that liberals do? They try to take away your guns. What did they do in communist China? What did Pol Pot do? What did Marxist Leninism do? What did every single country in China? What did people do in Laos and Vietnam? Is they disarm the public and then they stop teaching them how to read and write. What did the Egyptians do? What did the pharaohs do to the slaves? So when I look at this, and you're a purveyor of history, you're a person who's well educated. You see the communist push, the socialist push, the Alinsky push that's in California. And you come back to Virginia and you decide, okay, well, I'm going to go into a very blue area and I'm going to run against candidates who really have no contention, or I'm not expected to win. Are you just a creature of punishment? Or do you really feel that you are the person to kind of help us understand where we need to be? Maybe not 3 years ago or 5 years ago, but now.
Well, so when I moved back to Virginia, I ran for the Virginia House of Delegates in the former District 57 against socialist delegate Sally Hudson.
Yeah.
And she was full support of the trampling of our medical freedom. She was an economics professor who got a degree from MIT. And, she really was a bad apple when she served in the General Assembly. And the thing is with her is, I said, hey, let's do an in-person debate. And she refused to do any in-person debates. It was all virtual with like the one that NAACP and other organizations that had hosted. And, but it showed that she wanted to continue the fear mongering. Say, it's Phil Hamilton. He had a campaign kickoff with 50 people in front of the Albemarle County courthouse that Thomas Jefferson and other founding fathers had visited in the past. And she criticized me for not masking outside. I mean, just complete nonsense.
So insensitive, Philip. I mean, you never told us that. Is your twin brother a little bit more compassionate to the people around him?
Slightly, yeah.
Jeez Louise. These liberals are insane. It used to be leftist. Now it's just like all. Like, how can you claim yourself to be a part of this party? I mean, how can you not say, hey, wait a second, stop. This isn't just like, in Democrat KKK and Daughters of Confederacy go, this is wrong. We're going to move away from this. Anyway, so go ahead. So
she was peddling this fear in her constituents and saying that, Philip is not respecting the mandates. And, the funny story was I used to throw house parties in 2020 when Gavin Newsom, Governor Northam was the governor of Virginia. And he had an executive order basically saying that you can't have more than 25 people in your home. Well, there was a couple times I had 60 plus people.
Good for you.
So I'm like, screw you, Governor Northam. Screw you and your executive orders. We're going to have a good time.
Late term abortion Northam. Yeah. I like Youngkin winning was like, we had just gotten here and we had left Texas. And I love Texas. Like I love it was surprisingly enough, I had an opportunity to meet Dan Crenshaw and meet the mayor and work with them through Comcast and NBC. And Crenshaw, what a disappointment, but it doesn't matter. It had a chance, and there was so much hope for him at some point. Like, this guy's going to be great. And of course, the allure of big money and insider trading is always better than taking care of your constituents at a base salary. But I really was excited when Youngkin got here.
Yeah.
And I've met the man. I've talked to him on multiple occasions, and I find him to be a fairly honest and true politician still, but still someone who I somewhat respect compared to others. Jane Bush donated $50. Good luck, Philip. Please fight for Virginia. We need common sense again. Thank you, Jane.
Thank you. God bless you.
So you're carrying a lot of this, right? You're seeing, I mean, what's amazing is that your experience, I think this is the thing you run on, is that you've seen all forms of government. You've rubbed shoulders with the neocons. You've run shoulders with the conservatives, the libertarian versions, the Christians who are, even dare I say in the 2014 Christian movement inside this party was zealots, and they were pretty extreme. Just, that's my opinion. Now that you've seen all this and you've had your chance to cut your teeth, what do you think you bring that other candidates don't?
Well, I bring a historical appreciation of the United States of America. I mean, this year we are celebrating our 250.
Yeah, we are.
And I plan on being in D.C. for the parade that's going to be held on July 4th. And this is a time to be celebrating our great nation. I mean, we are a unique country in the world, and we are a beacon of light for the rest of the world. I mean, look at what's happening in Iran. Trump is taking action to free the Iranian people from an oppressive theocracy.
Yeah.
And, the United States, has taken action, and we've liberated people in the past, and we are continuing that legacy. But we need to educate our children about the principles, from the Enlightenment that our founding fathers believed in. The statements made from George Washington, his last inaugural address, the first Thanksgiving, even before our country was founded, all the Judeo-Christian values that our country was based off of. You
can't say that anymore.
Oh, I'm going to keep on saying it.
You have to be. Are you sure? Because you have to be careful. Because if you say Judeo-Christian, you're a Zionist.
So be it. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? So be it. Aren't you right?
Yeah.
It's dude, like whole nother peel back. Keep going, and then we gotta dive into that for a little bit because I really want to address it. But please.
And I'm good friends with Don Blake. He's the chairman, founder of the Virginia Christian Alliance. We have a friendship that goes back 15 plus years. And his office is in Henrico County. Highly recommend people to go out and visit him. And he did an event with Glenn Beck a couple years ago. And this was at one of the government buildings that Governor Youngkin and his staff were working in. But we were talking about the importance of First Landing and how the English came to the shore. They implanted a cross, and it took the wood from the mast of the ship.
That's right. Yeah.
And they said, we're going to spread Christianity throughout these lands. And the First Landing in Virginia is a very, historical, and it's a sacred religious spot in our nation. And, the state park system, of course, sees it from a more secular point of view, but we need our religious leaders to talk about the religious importance of spreading Christianity to the Native Americans and to others in the state, in this country. So I believe that that's very important. And we got to, tell the history. As the Secretary of Education said earlier this week when I saw her, we got to teach history, the good, the bad, the warts. We got to tell it all. We have one history. We got to tell all of it.
You can talk about manifest destiny, which you're alluding to very, very carefully, but it wasn't hijacked by liberals. It wasn't hijacked by Democrats, and that's the problem with manifest destiny. And bringing Christianity to the doorstep of people is a time-honored tradition, and it's forsaken by all others rather than loving yourself and loving God, is bringing the word of God to other people. But the way that it was done through forced attrition and punishment, which was brought over from Europe, you can push her down if you want to. I can't get over there to you, but if she drives you crazy, but she will love you forever. She'll be your best friend.
Yeah.
But if you look at manifest destiny, if you look at Jim Crow laws, you look at Tuskegee experiments, you look at civil rights, you have to look at some of the worst things in our history. You can get her down. I told you she'll just stay with you forever. You can push her down if you want her, keep loving on her. But you look at some of the worst things throughout our history, and you can go back to the KKK, you can go back, like I said, to Jim Crow laws, you can go back to all of these things, is that it's rooted in corruptible people seek more power at the base of freedom. So I'm going to show you a video, and it ties us into a great conversation, which will give you a chance to punt the cat and dog who love you. But I wanted to show you this. This came out today, and this is the proposed legislation that's sitting on Spanberger's desk in regards to Virginia gun law, which I can't believe I'm saying that in the state of Virginia. This is the don't tread state. And it's a very interesting thing that, once again, corruptibility and power over people's freedoms is the reoccurring thing that we see from the Democrat Party. That is something that used to be free speech and something about the ACLU and civil rights. And this was the focus. Now it's completely different. So we're going to watch this, and then I want to get your opinion on this. And this isn't me trying to glorify my video. It's just the best one that I could find on it because nobody else is covering it. Here it is.
Take a look at this for a second. Virginia Democrats just pushed another gun control bill, and buried in the language is a line that should make every Virginian stop cold. The provisions of this section shall not apply to any member of the General Assembly. Let that sink in.
That to me is beyond the pale. General Assembly, We are a citizen legislature. We are citizens just like everybody else. We go back home. We interact with their constituents. We're a part of the community. We are no better than anybody else. And we should never vote for a bill that gives us a special privilege over any other citizen.
The same people writing the laws made sure the law does not apply to them. That is straight out of Orwell. Remember Animal Farm? The animals were told the rules applied to everyone. Then the pigs quietly changed the line. All animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. That's exactly what you're looking at here. These are the same politicians who stand behind podiums every election cycle telling you that certain firearms are too dangerous for ordinary Americans. They say these weapons threaten society. They say you cannot be trusted with them. They say restrictions are necessary for public safety. But the moment the bill is written, they carve themselves out of it. The people who lecture you about safety and responsibility suddenly make sure the rules stop at their own front door. Take Abigail Spanberger and the rest of the Richmond crowd. These are the same people who push gun bans while traveling with armed security. They want you disarmed while they walk around with protection paid for by taxpayers. They vote to restrict magazines and rifles for law-abiding citizens while making sure they keep every option available for themselves. That's not principle. That is raw political hypocrisy.
Where
and it's
did
not
she
just
come
guns. Look at the pattern. They push climate rules while flying private jets. They lecture working families about energy consumption while they build bigger houses and hire drivers.
How?
They
Lock
demand
her in
sacrifice from
downstairs.
everyone else while protecting their own comfort and security. Now we see the same thing in black and white inside a bill. The rules apply to you. The rules do not apply to them. So the next time someone like Spanberger stands in front of a camera talking about the responsibilities, remember what you are seeing right here. The political class protecting itself while pretending it is protecting you. Orwell nailed it decades ago when he said that all animals are equal. But the pigs always make sure the rules stop at the barn door. Thanks for watching.
All right. Amen. So thanks. So first of all, this is a podcast. Like you said it when you walked in here. It's not like any other podcast. We actually have family. We have kids. It's a universal. My kids are awesome. My son, he's out. Ethan. That's the thing you hear when mom's out, because we run it as a family, and it's just I don't know, but we're excited about it. But this is what's happening in our beloved Virginia. I have another thing I'm going to show you on Front Royal here in a little bit that I know a few listeners are watching over there and have been turned on to the show. How mad does this make you? They ran again. We're not going to take your guns. We're not going to go ahead and redistrict. We're not going to do this. They blatantly lied, and people just obfuscate and pretend and just stick their heads in the sand that this isn't happening. How can they not understand that this is cyclical? How do they not understand this will happen to them when we give government complete unfettered access to our freedoms? I'm going to give you some time on this one because this is a big one.
Yeah, well, I knew that Abigail Spanberger was a fake moderate. I mean, she's a former CIA agent.
Yeah, exactly.
So she knows how to dupe individuals to believe in one thing while doing the complete opposite, which is what she's done.
Easy on CIA people, okay? We get a bad rap, so no, it's okay. Go ahead. Intel people, the IC. I worked in intelligence for a long time, but you're right. This is what they're trained to do. These people are very good at manipulation. It's for certain. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I mean, there's great folks who work in the intelligence community.
Sure.
I mean, I've met Tulsi Gabbard. I love the work that she's doing under the Trump administration. I had the honor of meeting her a couple of years ago when she was campaigning for President Trump and at a Second Amendment Institute event in D.C. And but we have folks like Spanberger who take it all the way in the other direction, and she's just a rubber stamp for Don Scott and the Senate leader Louise Lucas, and they are ramming all these gun grabbing bills. You know, we had conservative Barbie, who was just at the state capitol earlier this weekend with my friend Karen Hamilton, who's the House of Delegates. She replaced Nick Freitas, who resigned and now is doing his podcast full time. I
wonder why he's doing that.
Well, he's making a lot of money now, but
but you and I both know that a man of his honor, a man of his integrity, walks into there and goes, "Okay, I'm going to give this a shot. I'm going to give it my 4. I'm going to give it my 6, maybe my 8." And if I'm not going to be able to make it down, I'm getting the hell out of here.
Yeah.
Do you think that was his dilemma?
He gave it a decade of his life, and I just think he felt like he wasn't moving the needle.
Yeah.
I mean, he gave a lot of great speeches in the General Assembly.
Fantastic.
You know, he was, defending our Second Amendment rights. He called out the Democrats for, if you don't agree with us, you must be a white supremacist. You must be a racist. And that's a way of just shutting down disagreement. And shame on them for doing that. Mm-hmm. And they continue to do that to this day. But, Spanberger, she's going to be the most radical administration that the Commonwealth has ever seen.
Oh, absolutely.
And and I think people are waking up to it. Those hundreds of thousands of folks who didn't vote for Winsome Sears last year are certainly regretting it now.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And listen, I mean, that's the case, right? I mean, if we do this, if you don't show up in 2026 and 2027, that's it. And it's on a national level. I mean, they're going to impeach him. And the Senate will flip. There's plenty of Republicans in there who will absolutely get off his coattails and stab him in the back like Caesar in order to go ahead and redeem their chances of getting re-upped in these contentious districts in the future. This. So
absolutely.
How do you get them out there, man? I mean, how do we energize? And I want you to talk about TPUSA, because I believe that this is the number one way we energize young men today, is establishing that it's okay to be a guy. It's okay to be a man. You don't have to be an effeminate male. It's okay. You don't have to apologize anymore. Go ahead. I know I'm hitting you with a lot, but
okay, keep it going.
All right.
And we got to keep hammering the message that Republicans support real affordability in the Commonwealth, which is lowering taxes, repealing a lot of these tax increases, including deliveries on Grubhub, Uber Eats,
so stupid.
Walking your dog, all these additional,
right.
They're just slapping these erroneous tax increases, which is going to make it harder for you to feed your family, for you to take care of your day-to-day needs. And there's a lot of Democrats who've been coming out there. I've been watching some podcasts with them, and they're talking about, well, we were really duped on the affordability agenda. I'm like, yeah, no kidding. Yeah.
It's like, just read a book. And they're like, well, which book should I? Any book, just so you can get to a point where you can start comprehending what Democrats have done throughout history. They've never expanded the power of the people, ever.
No,
it's always limiting it by increasing the size of the government. They are federalists. They believe that the federal government is the answer. They're globalists. This is not hard. This is their MO. I need to do a quick interrupt because it's 2018, 8/18 for those civilians. Mr. Hamilton, you can find him at Hamilton for VASenate.com. My wife has been speaking to Phillip for a while, and I know he comes highly recommended. Dude, you need to be a part of this more often. You're an amazing guest. I love talking to you.
Thank you.
Please go over to Hamilton for VASenate.com. Sign up, donate if you can, whatever you can do to help out. It doesn't matter. If you were going to donate to the show tonight, which I know all of you will, we always hit goal. We always hit our goal. I'm totally fine. Throw it over there. Let's give him all the help we can. And I need you to go to his Facebook page and X. Can you give us your social media handles? Where can they find you at whatever on Facebook and all that other stuff?
So you can find me on Facebook at Hamilton for Virginia Senate. And I have Hamilton for Virginia on Instagram, and on Twitter, X, which is now called, it's Hamilton for VA. We
need to get his at Hamilton for Virginia Senate. I'm going to make sure I put the links, and I'll do a little write-up after this, and we'll continue this. I doubt this is the last time we see him. This is a long run. It's a 2027 run. We're starting early. And I anticipate helping you as much as I can and whatever I can do. This is my first time dabbling in politics and helping people with campaigns. I'm pretty damn good at advertising and marketing. It's what I did for Fortune 500s, Fortune 15s, let's be honest, for a lot of years. So if I can help in any way, shape, or form, graphic design, social media, whatever I can do to help you, I'd be more than happy to.
Yeah, let's make it happen.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. So that's where you go. Go to Hamilton for VASenate.com. You can find him on Facebook, Hamilton for Virginia Senate, at Hamilton for Virginia Senate. Make sure you go and do that. All right, so we've discussed kind of your background, your parents, education, California, come back to Virginia, your experiences with every type of conservative group that has reformed itself over the last 20 years, whether it be Reagan Democrats or blue-collar liberals or blue-collar Democrats or neocons or Christian conservatives. How would you define this current state of the Republican Party? because I have a feeling that it is, from the constituents' perspective, MAGA, America first, but not only America, right? I mean, because that's when you isolate and you ignore the rest of the world, that's antithetical to America first. It really is, because we need our partners, we need security, we need our bases, we need to ensure that we never allow a major power to come about that is usurping the sovereignty of other nations, because then we're next. But we're America first, we're MAGA. Where do you think the Republican Party, the GOP, where is their mentality? Do they really believe that in 2028 we're just going to forget Trump and we're going to completely abandon America first and we're going to go back? Or
No.
do you think we've changed?
No, the party has changed completely. I mean, MAGA is here to stay, and I fully support it. And I think J.D. Vance will be a great candidate for president in 2028, or Marco Rubio. I'd be happy to see either one of them to continue this legacy. And I don't see Donald Trump going with other presidents and, generally staying quiet right after he leaves office. I see him going around doing rallies for J.D. Vance if he becomes the nominee, and the fight to keep the White House in 2028 and beyond. So Trump is here to stay. And I've met Republicans in the past. Some of them who are like, well, I don't like the way that Trump talks. And, and sure, he's a brash guy. He's from New York, and I can understand, some of the sentiment against that. But I mean, look at the overall picture. I mean, do you support his policies? Do you support kicking all the illegals out? Are you against the trans? Are you transing our kids specifically, with these gender reassignment surgeries? And Trump's done a great job with putting an end to it and appointing Secretary Kennedy to the position that he's in, where we're defunding these trans surgeries. I think that was very critical. And we just got to keep on pushing, the agenda. And, there are some fractures within the party currently, but I think we really need to band together in 2028. And, to continue the MAGA legacy in the White House. Because if we have, let's say, a Gavin Newsom, if he's the nominee and he's in the White House, I mean, we're going to see those borders ripped wide open. We're going to see, them taking cranes and opening the border wall in Texas like they did under the Biden administration, let the illegals pour in by the thousands every day. And we're going to be back at square one. With another fentanyl crisis, with your daughters, your wives being raped and murdered by illegals. And we saw that very unfortunate case of that woman at the bus stop in Fairfax, and she's just one of countless stories of these angel families. And I thought Trump did an excellent job at the State of the Union, asking everyone in the audience to stand up if you support our American citizens first, not illegal aliens. And of course, the Democrats sat down. They're like, we're not going to support just American citizens first. We are legal aliens. Those are our constituents. We want them to be in America so that way they can vote us into power and so that we can retain power. And, Peter Schweitzer wrote a really great book. It just launched earlier this year, but he talked about the weaponization of immigration. Mm-hmm. We're going through a very different fight now than we were even a decade ago. So we have, the Chinese in other countries have been weaponizing our immigration system against us. And, it's just terrible to see, but, we got to keep the fight going.
JD Stillwell donated $20. Don't forget the question. Great interview, folks. There are FEC. Yes, there's FEC standards when it comes to fundraising for a candidate, and you need to read the in between the lines. So I can't tell you what you want me to say when it comes to donations tonight. You're just going to have to assume who I am and what I do and know me based on the last 5 years, because I can't say what you want me to say, because then I have to register as something I don't want to register as. So figure it out.
Yeah.
We'll say it at the end of the show. Figure it out. There's a reason why donations are up when we have somebody sitting in the chair. What that could be, I don't know. but I'm assuming that we'll find out at the end of the show if you have a good faith belief in the process. Okay, Jen McCarver. Okay, so now that we've established that, I have to speak a little code here. There's 2 questions I have to ask, and if I don't ask them, we'll get in trouble. There's people, first of all, 3. If you were to akin yourself to somebody else or liken yourself to somebody else, not akin, that would be your brother, but liken yourself to another person in this political game, who would it be?
So like a member of Congress or
Anybody, and like politics, influencer, politician. If you could just from a philosophical, intellectual presentation standpoint, not aesthetics. Aesthetics is another question, and looks, but from a mind, who would you want to emulate, or who do you feel you're most akin to?
You know, I really love Chip Roy. I mean,
that's really good. You said that.
He's a firebrand. And you know what? He actually went to the University of Virginia in Charlottesville.
Yeah.
So I've had the honor of meeting him multiple times.
Smart guy.
He's spoken at the UVA Students for Freedom at UVA. He was actually campaigning for former Congressman Bob Good a couple years ago during his primary fight against now Congressman John McGuire. And Chip Roy, he's been giving great floor speeches about the immigration crisis, about our financial crisis, and much more. And he's more, he works with the Republican caucus more so than Thomas Massey and Rand Paul do. I mean, of course, their voices are important too. But I feel like I'd be willing to work with the caucus, the way that Chip Roy does, that Rand Paul and Thomas Massey do not.
Interesting. Yeah, I like Chip Roy. Okay, so that's from an intellectual standpoint, right? So from aesthetics, overall appearance, who do you think you get most that you look like?
Well, maybe former Congressman Matt Gaetz. Just with a smaller head.
You don't look like Gaetz, dude. You look a lot like Michael Knowles.
Oh,
you look like a mixture between Michael Knowles and Ron Reagan Jr.
Okay, I can see that.
That's good. That's good. Michael Knowles is devilishly handsome but smart, right? So he's essentially got that look, and he's all put together, but he's a wicked smart guy. Then you got guys like Freitas and I who are old salt and just bearded, and we're just old, but we can bench press, and that's something Michael Knowles can't do. Yeah, so we can hit the weights. So
Michael Knowles, actually, I got to see him at the Washington Lee University 2 years ago. It was actually the day after the second attempt on Trump's life. Yeah. And he spent the first 10 minutes of the speech talking about this. He's like, you know what, this wasn't planned, but I got to address this issue. And, I highly respect him for doing that.
Yeah.
But Michael Knowles, he's got a really funny book out there.
Mm-hmm.
He's like great things about Democrats.
Yeah.
And it's like the book, it's all blank,
Yeah. I like him so much. There's just a few guys in this business. Freitas is one of them, and then Knowles, and they have a really good friendship. They're really good buddies. And, there's people that you look at and go, gosh, that's what we need. But these guys are too smart to either stay in it or get into it. Next question is, okay, ladies, seriously, you're killing me. Are you family life? So I'm going to ask this with a little more couth than my viewers. Single, married, kids, without kids, just interested to hear about the family. If you want to talk about that, if you don't want to talk about that, you can say, you know what, I pass.
Well, sure. That's important to hear about, the family life of Kansas. Folks want to know about that. Actually, I when I was in college, actually, I did get, married shortly after my senior year. And unfortunately, did end up in divorce, but I have, a daughter who she turned 16 last August.
It's not insane, dude.
Yeah.
I've got one right there.
Yep. And teenage years it's a different animal to deal with. But
how old are you, Phillip?
I'm 38, going on 39 very soon.
Had her very young.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I started young.
Yeah.
But it was interesting because after my first House of Delegates race, I ran for state Senate in 2023 against Craig Deeds, who's still in the Senate. He's been in the Virginia General Assembly for over 30 years. He's been up there for a long time.
Yeah.
And, during my race, I actually brought Michelle Blair, did a fundraiser with her. She was honored by Trump at the State of the Union because her granddaughter was gender confused, was sexually assaulted, unfortunately, at a bathroom in Appomattox County, Virginia. And she got on an
Is
app.
it the high school?
Yeah.
Okay, we covered this. Yeah.
Yeah. And what happened was that she got on an app, talked to this rando, and they met up, and she was human trafficked for months. And the FBI had to go and rescue her. And when, Michelle Blair tried to get her, they picked her up and they brought her to a courthouse in Maryland, same state where my, ex-wife and daughter currently live in. And, the judge wanted Michelle Blair to use the pronouns, before she could get her granddaughter back, which is absolutely ridiculous. And Trump mentioned that during his, part of the State of the Union speech as well, because that was an important part of the story. But Michelle Blair has been pushing for Sage's Law. I was a huge proponent of it. This is a personal issue for me because, my daughter from my first marriage, she's also dealing with this gender confusion. She's going to the public school in Maryland, and I've been trying to pull her away from this. And, there was a MSN article that came out 3 years ago saying that, Republican candidate for state Senate outs his daughter. And I'm like, it's not about outing. They were also criticizing, saying I was dead naming my daughter, which I thought was absolutely ridiculous because I named her Crystal. Yeah. She goes by Phoenix now. And, my daughter refused to tell me. She wouldn't tell me who brainwashed her into this. Was it a school administrator? Was it a teacher? Or was it a friend, or who it was? But she wouldn't tell me. And, it was just heartbreaking to deal with it. And I feel the pain of other, parents who've dealt with a kid who, is going against their birth name, who's going against their biological, gender, which is against God's grand design. And, I feel their pain. And, I've been a huge proponent of Sage's Law. And if I'm elected, I will be, hopefully sponsoring that in the Senate side, in the Virginia General Assembly. And what Sage's Law does is that it mandates that parents be notified of any child who is going through, thoughts of gender confusion. So if the child decides to use a different name in the classroom than they're using at home, the parents should know about it,
That's right. Of course they should. Of course.
If you're paying tax dollars to put your kids in school, teachers and administrators cannot hide these crucial facts about your own child from you. And the Democrats have been killing it every single year. But Trump has made this a national issue now. So hopefully when we take back the General Assembly, we can finally get this bill passed.
When I gotta ask one more question. There's stupid questions too, and this is a standard 5.5 years we ask every single person. Pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
I love my pineapple on pizza.
I'm sorry, that's the wrong.
That's all right.
Sorry, it's the wrong answer. You're in my wife's corner and half of the Don't Unfriend Me Nation. Most people are. This is a pretty contentious issue. You lost some votes. I'm sorry, but you gained some too. So it's going to be a wash, and that's going to be okay. You're going to be fine.
We'll have a pineapple pizza party. Don't worry.
Yeah. So when you midterms are never fun for the
party in power.
I'm gonna get a weather update. You hear that out there? It's howling.
Yeah.
And we had some tornado warnings. We would lose power first. So plus we're at the base of the Blue Ridge, so the chances of a tornado are pretty small. But I just you get a little nervous out here, especially when you saw that weather map today. That was scary. I mean, it was blood red. But midterms for the incumbent party usually are a loss. In fact, 2 times has the House and the Senate and throughout U.S. history ever gone to the incumbent party. And most presidents outside of 4 have lost at least 1 chamber of Congress. The reality of this is, and based upon what we're seeing with Virginia and some other bellwethers, is if the special elections that we've had and any of the off-term elections have not been great for the Republican Party right now. We understand all the numbers. What do you think it's going to take in the next 8 months or so, a little less than that, where you could see the United States saying, we cannot give the Democrats any power and we have to stay the course in order for us to move out of these pain points that we saw under Biden. The record high inflation, 26% higher from 4 years ago inflation. People don't understand that it's a compounded interest when it comes to inflation, and prices don't go back down once they go back up to that level, especially for commodity, food, etc. So we've seen these pain points. We saw the interest rates. We saw the Fed. We saw inflation. We saw the valuation of the dollar. We saw the energy dependence completely increase. We all of these things took place. What is it going to take to get people to remember this in November when they go to the ballot box and do not check blue? What do you think is going to take for it to happen?
Well, I think the most important thing that we need to do is pass the SAVE Act. And Scott Pressler has been pushing it. You know, we've had a lot of other folks, even there's members of Congress are saying, I'm not going to vote yes on any bill until we get the SAVE Act passed. And Trump has said, I'm not going to sign any bill
into law. He just
said
law. That, yeah? Yeah. He did. Do you nuke the filibuster?
You know what? If we got to do it, we got to do it.
If you don't, they're going to.
Yeah.
The only reason why it's not nuked now, and people, there's no memory. Manchin and Sinema are the only reason why they didn't nuke the filibuster. We had 2 senators say no, and they were Democrats. And Manchin and Sinema are no longer there. So you have a situation that they're going to walk in, and if they overtake this on Jan 3/1, they are going to nuke the filibuster. And then they're going to pass whatever legislation. They're going to pack the Supreme Court. They're going to go ahead and make Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C. a state. They're going to expand the Senate by 4 seats. You know what's going to happen, and it is going to completely change the entire way we do things. And if you think that they're not going to do it, just look at Virginia, for God's sakes. It is an exact roadmap of what they're going to do.
Exactly.
So how do we stop it?
Well, if let's say hypothetically, if we do not pass the SAVE Act, we're going to have a lot of folks who are not going to be happy. I mean, on the MAGA side of things, and they're going to say, "Well, elections don't matter. You know, we don't have voter integrity, and the Democrats are just going to strip it once they get back in power." If we don't pass the SAVE Act, I don't think we can win. It's so essential to winning this fall, because without voter integrity, we can't get Republicans out to the polls, because some of them just say my vote isn't worth it. So we got to give them reasons to believe in their system again. So that's why the SAVE Act is so critical at this point in time.
Yeah, you've got to do something. Thune and Cornyn, it's hard for me to understand the one thing about President Trump. And this is a question for you too. If I had one question to ask President Trump, there's not many things that he does that I don't understand. I'm pretty good. Like Iran, I explained to people 4 years ago that Iran, why it was necessary, why it had to take place. 1776, great number. You'd have my vote if I lived there. Best of luck, and God bless Debbie Boggs. By the way, in network, we're looking at about 210 people all in on the show. And this thing will be seen by 10, 15,000. Especially if I boost it a little bit. So the great thing about this is that the more you come on, the more pull you get on the show, and people tend to watch. But if I was to ask Donald Trump one question, President Trump one question, it's not a lot of the decisions that he makes. I'm pretty comfortable. I may ask him why he came off the balcony during COVID and flaunted his special cocktail that he got while other people were dying in hospitals. That probably wasn't the best choice, but I wouldn't even ask him that. He was trying to give people some sort of hope, that go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, Gavin Newsom with the French Laundry. I mean, he was partying en masse.
Nancy Pelosi haircuts in the salon.
That's right.
Yeah, we know, man. We saw it. So I think I would ask him, and I would say, why do you continue to support people who are completely antithetical to your best interests, which would Lindsey Graham? Perfect
example.
What does Lindsey Graham have on you, President Trump? Because I don't understand what you see in this guy. And a lot of people are like, keep your enemies close. He's playing 4D chess. No, he could have ousted Lindsey Graham very easily. If you were to ask him one question, what would it be?
That's
take your time. There's no
rush.
I
actually have not even thought of that before. That's a great question. But Trump actually, he owns, well, not his son Eric Trump actually runs the Trump Winery in Charlottesville, Virginia. And our Republican committee, we actually meet at the Trump Cidery, which is a new installation that's just right across the street from the Trump Winery. Mm-hmm. There was a former billionaire who lived on that property. He used to have a museum on there, and he passed away Trump ended up buying the property. The widow ended up working as a property manager at the time. But, actually, I would probably ask Trump just details about how he became interested in acquiring this property in Charlottesville, Virginia, and just kind of hearing the backstory about it. Because, like, right after he acquired it, actually, Rob Schilling, one of my friends with the Rob Schilling Show, did an interview with him in 2016, at the Trump Winery, talking about it. So, yeah, I think it'd be an interesting story for my supporters to hear about.
Yeah. It's I think he's at his best when he's at local rallies and he's engaging the audience. And I know Iran is taking that away from him right now, because that's what he was doing, right? I mean, he was hitting these rallies, and he's still just did one most recently. I think it was North Carolina he went into. It doesn't matter. The point is that he's at his best, and that's what we're going to need. We're going to have him activate these local races in order to somehow keep an advantage. And I think at this point, I think he's probably resigned to the fact that we're going to lose either probably the House, but we could keep the Senate. But I'll tell you what, if you don't nuke it and you don't nuke that filibuster, it's gone on 27 Jan, and we will never see this country, but it will be Virginia. Mm-hmm. And they will do irreparable damage that they tried to do with destroying our global position in the world. And that ultimately impacted us here in stateside. And if they get this to do this at the federal level, I don't think we recover this time. I thought Biden was the most damaging president before he even took office. I said he'll be more horrible than Jimmy Carter. And I laid out exactly the things that Jimmy Carter did wrong. And man, I'm telling you, Biden fulfilled every single low expectation that I had, and then some.
Yeah, and the Democrats loved the fact that he was senile, and that the bureaucrats could take advantage of that.
Yes.
That's why we have the auto pen scandal, which we're still looking into at this time.
Yeah. Well, Biden was never known for he was a paper tiger. You would see him stand up. You saw him against Clarence Thomas. You saw him with LARP, and you saw him with a few of the other acts that he pushed through. And there were some things that he did that were decent sometimes, especially when it comes to military vehicle and the IED removal vehicles that he implemented and signed and co-sponsored. There were some things that were okay as a senator. But when it came to the presidency, I'm one of those people that are like, dude, you can name one or two things that Obama did that you appreciated. There's one or two things you can say that Bill Clinton did. There's one or two things you can say Trump did, even if you're diametrically opposed to those people. I could not find anything that Joe Biden did outside of 4 VA bills that I would, and those weren't even his, that I could appreciate about his presidency. It was a soup sandwich for sure.
Yeah, I remember Biden, he was giving speeches about the unvaccinated, like myself. I never got the COVID.
I didn't either.
Well, God bless you for that.
Yeah, good to you. Good for you too. It's smart.
Yeah.
I mean, what risk did you have? Unless you have a predetermined. I mean, you're good shape. I run 3 miles, lift every single day, have a good blood pressure. I'm not 26 anymore. I'm 52 years old, but damn, I'll get down and I'll do 100 push-ups with just about anybody. Maybe not Kennedy, but that guy's a freak of nature.
Yeah, but now neither one of us have a risk of blood clots, and that's why you saw kids in their 20s, these young athletes who are collapsing the field, and some of them who died and I think a lot of that is tied to this experimental mRNA injection that they got. And even Dr. Malone, who's from Madison County, Virginia, I've had the opportunity to meet him multiple times at some Senate hearings, the General Assembly up in DC, and he's against his own creation. He developed the technology, and he said, this is doing more harm than good. And he's been very outspoken about that.
You a Star Trek fan or a Star Wars fan?
You know what?
You don't have, this isn't a political question.
Wow,
you just get down the middle. Just give me one. Star Trek or Star Wars?
You want out of the two, I guess more Star Wars fan, but I'm not really enthused about it. I actually watch a lot of other science fiction. There's a new show on Apple TV called The Foundation. I actually really love it.
Is it good?
It's good.
All right, I'm putting it on my list.
Yeah, they just had a 3rd season. Just went through that, and I really appreciate like the depth of the stories, and it's about a dynasty of, emperors who are cloned for, generations over hundreds of years. And that's just like one aspect of the story and the galaxies that they rule over. And, ever since I was 14 years old, I've been into science fiction. Actually, when I was 14, I read, it was called Robots and Empire from this Russian author. It's 500 pages long. So to read a book at that age, showed I was a real bookworm growing up.
Yeah, no. Were you an Asimov guy when you were Isaac Asimov when you grew up at all? Or were you Piers Anthony? Did you do fantasy or what was like?
Yeah, I've read some of the, the Lord of the Rings
so
trilogy.
Tolkien, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any Feist?
C.K. Lewis.
Okay. C.K. Lewis is good.
Yeah.
Good. Well, so we grew up chewed on some of the same fat. There's a few years between us, but yeah.
In 1984, I had to read that Fahrenheit 451.
Of course.
Some of the dystopian.
Yep. Orwell is fantastic. Isaac Asimov is fairly dystopian in there, right? But science fiction based. So yeah, no, good. So we grew up, no Catcher in the Rye, I take it.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Of course. Everyone read. I mean, you had a choice, right? You could read To Kill a Mockingbird, which you can't read anymore. Catcher in the Rye, Wuthering Heights, Great Expectations, and a couple of others. And I think we probably plowed through most of those together. Well, it's interesting, man. You got 13 more minutes in you, or do you want to skedaddle?
Let's do it.
All right. So let's do this. Let's do the have you seen any Linkletter films?
I have not.
Okay, so there's this series that I'm showing my daughter, and she came to me and she said, I want to know what love is. And I said, I can quote you a sonnet. I can tell you to read Shakespeare. I can give you something from Thoreau. I can tell you a great song by Rush or Fleetwood Mac, and I could do all those things. And really, none of that's going to do it for you. But what I can do is I can show you a few movies, and you will know what love is after you watch these 3 movies. And she's like, whatever. I don't think that's true. And I said, yes, you will. And the movies are called Before Sunrise, Before Sunset, Before Midnight. So with Ethan Hawke, whether you like him politically or not, it doesn't matter. And Julie Delpy. And essentially it encapsulates about 5 hours and 30 minutes of just 2 people walking and talking. And it's like Lord of the Rings without the
battles,
the plot. It's just a giant walking thing. But the dialogue is where it's at, and it's incredible dialogue, and it builds this network of ideas that transcends the motion picture and really injects it into you to apply your own physicality into the film and your own mental state into the film, spiritually, existentially. You're like I'm that character. And you watch it from that purview of that character. And it's an amazing story. And you feel the ebbs and flows. And although it is not exciting in any way, there's no climax, there's nothing exciting, there's no cliffhanger. But my daughter saw the first one and she sat up and she goes, I got to go to bed and think about this. So she goes to sleep. She wakes up the next day. She goes, I've been at school all day and I have to watch the second one. I have to know what's going on. The reason I set this up for you is you had an idea when you walked in here. You do this for a living. You get in front of people. You talk about your ideas. You talk about your opinions. And then hopefully enough people are inspired by that moment to vicariously live through you and go out and vote for you to say that person is going to represent me. That person is going to speak for me. And he's not my leader. He doesn't owe me and I don't owe him, but he will go out and represent my voice. That's a long process to this question. Why should people, as my dog comes and supports you, why should people trust you with that responsibility to represent their best interest? And how can they rely on you for that? Give me a couple minutes of why they should do that for you.
Sure. So, I'm a small business owner. I run Hamilton Legal Services, LLC. I understand the pain of tax hikes because, I have to deal with it, and I have to run a budget. I have to pay payroll. I got contractors I got to pay. And, if we want a responsible government, and if I'm going outside my budget, I make some cuts. But what are the Democrats doing in the General Assembly? Well, they have all these new social programs they want to put forth. And, they have these new pet projects they want to pay for. They even want to pay to remove some additional monuments like the Stonewall Jackson Monument and a couple other ones on Capitol Square. And that's all erroneous spending of taxpayer dollars.
It's just ridiculous.
Yeah. And, it's just more destruction of our history that on the taxpayer dime, which is very unfortunate. And, I run a history website, HamiltonHistoricalRecords.com. I'm running it since 2018, and I have a great appreciation for our nation's history. So, I've spent time reading the words of, Thomas Jefferson, of George Washington, James Madison, James Monroe, and, various other founding fathers. So, as a legislator, I would keep the spirit of the founding fathers in mind with every bill that I sponsor and with every vote that I take. And that's important, because the Democrats who are in power now, they don't give a damn about the founding fathers. They have their own agenda that they're putting forth, and they want, tyranny. And we even see with the gun control bills, they say, oh, well, this is going to apply to everyone else in Virginia, but we're exempting ourselves.
Right.
That's the exact definition
insane.
of tyranny.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It certainly is. The reason I asked the question and told you the story about if I was to show somebody what love was without experiential learning, and those 3 movies do it. And so I'll bring that question back around. When it comes to you've made your declaration of why, hey, this is what I believe, this is who I am. If you were to have people read or watch or consume or disseminate one piece of anything that you choose that can help inspire them to get involved or to get out and vote, what would it be? What's that catalyst that you would recommend as somebody who's consumed so much to help the viewers and to help the voters of Virginia kind of get out and find that passion that you have for political change?
What really sparked my interest in conservatism was Barry Goldwater's book, A Conscience of a Conservative. Highly recommend it.
It's a good book.
It's a short read, but it's very concise. And, even some of my campaign speeches, I've mentioned Barry Goldwater's quotes. And I just think it's important to, tell, our TP USA students. I mean, there's 5 new chapters in Albemarle County alone. And actually, I'll dive into it now, but I've been supporting Noah Coffin, who's the chairman of the Turning Point chapter in Albemarle County, is the Western Albemarle chapter. And he's been going through a fight. He met Charlie Kirk before he was assassinated at AM Fest in 2024. He invited Victoria Cobb from the Family Foundation to come and speak to his group. Allison Spillman, who's the vice chair of the Albemarle County School Board, she equated inviting Victoria Cobb to speak on the subject of one truth, 2 genders as inviting the Ku Klux Klan to come to one of the public high schools, which is absolutely atrocious. And actually, it really endangered the children because, you're equating a speaker with having the Ku Klux Klan. I mean, that's absolutely ridiculous that they were doing that, but there's an agenda behind that. And there was a lawsuit that was filed against Victoria Cobb and the Turning Point chapter, and they lost. Victoria Cobb was able to speak, and the meeting went through. But I was actually at a school board meeting on March 12th last week, and they've invited Erica Kirk to come and speak at the Western Albemarle High School. And Allison Spillman and the other board members, because this is a 6-1 makeup. So there's 6 Democrats, there's 1 Republican. Jim Dillenbeck, who was just elected last year, is the only Republican that's on the board. So they want to stonewall the Turning Point USA chapter and the block Erica Kirk from coming to the school because they don't agree with her viewpoints. And what they did is that they had multiple revisions to the student activities policies, which included outside guests. And they basically said, well, if the viewpoints of certain outside guests, endanger or discriminatory, for example, towards trans students, if they can be viewed as discriminatory, they can, cancel their appearance. And furthermore, they said that not only can we cancel appearances, but if we view that a club is supporting discriminatory viewpoints, we can shut down, dissolve the club, and seize their funds and apply it towards a general student activities fund. So, they're in for a fight.
This is what I was talking about, right? It's like the Democrats seem emboldened from even with Trump in office, the state and local Democrats are just like, they seem emboldened to break whatever rule it takes, and the constituent be damned.
Absolutely. And I read when I spoke to the Albemarle County School Board last week, it said, you guys will face a lawsuit because FIRE, which is a free speech organization, has threatened to file a lawsuit, and they're going to do it. And also the Family Foundation has a legal wing. They're going to file another lawsuit on behalf of Turning Point USA. But I told Noah Coffin after the meeting, keep on fighting. If you have to meet outside the school, go ahead. If they dissolve you, just keep fighting until you can get reinstated. Because he's a senior now, but he wants the club to continue. He wants to continue Charlie Kirk's legacy in Albemarle County, and I support him 100% in that mission.
Yeah, with your work with TPUSA, and this will be the last one before just kind of hand it off to you to give final words. The void that was left when Charlie was taken. I mean, President Trump has said that, in not so many words, that Charlie Kirk had a profound impact on his reelection.
Absolutely.
And Charlie's ability to connect the dots and to rally the youth movement really turned the way the election went. Now, Donald Trump gained in every single demographic except for women. And so that's the huge win. And I tried to explain to people that there was a 3% gap. Is Joe Biden gained 3% of females and 4% of males. Scratch that. 3% of males and 4% of females during his run in 2020. We understand a lot of that is mail-in ballots coming from areas where 90-10 splits happen in blue counties, but it's neither here nor there. The point is it was 7%, and we saw that swing with 5 million votes that left the Democratic Party and jumped on to the Republican Party. It was a 9 million vote swing from 2020's performance to 2024, and that's really all it takes. It doesn't take some ungodly amount of number where it's like, okay, 50% of these voters need to move this demographic. No, it takes 1, 2, 3 points to change an election of this magnitude.
Yeah.
Go ahead, and then I'll follow up with what I was going to say.
Yeah, that's very important point to make, because Charlie Kirk, he had such an articulate message, and I still watch his debates with college students. I mean, he valued the speaking to the youth, speaking to folks who disagree with him, having them come to the front of the line and say, hey, if you disagree with me, come over here. Right. You get priority. Let's have a debate. Let's have an exchange of ideas.
Right.
You prove me wrong. And I'm glad to see Nick Freitas and others who are continuing that legacy on college campuses, because Nick Freitas was at UVA having this college debate before that school board meeting that I attended.
Yep.
But going back to your question,
who fills that void? Because right now you're seeing a very toxic, vitriolic, and petulant representation of humanity on X and other social medias. And I think that there is so much influence from people who are not real that we're forgetting our humanity a little bit. And AI isn't going to help that.
No.
And bots are certainly not going to help that. And where our information comes from can't be inundated with yeses. It has to be critiqued through no. And in my experience, and my best way of processing and disseminating information is, for every yes I give 1,000 no's. And when I read something, it's always no. And then to get to yes, it's usually because I have processed enough of the noise out of the decision making that I get to an altruistic, or at least an authentic decision for me to make. This is what I see with Nick Freitas. This is what I see with Mike Knowles. This is what I see, even though Ben Shapiro's been on the wrong side of a lot of stuff. I still think he doesn't make uninformed decisions. Sometimes I think he's influenced by outside forces. But I look at people like Mike Rowe, and I look at people like Charles Krauthammer, who's no longer with us, God rest his soul, who I thought was the most brilliant conservative mind to have walked the earth out of just about everybody. The way you feel about Goldwater, I'm Krauthammer. When I look at Rush Limbaugh, I don't see anyone filling the shoes for Charlie Kirk, because let's face it, even though Dan Bongino is incredible and I love Dan, Dan's not going to fill Charlie Kirk's role. Do you believe that there is a person who is in our ether right now who can exemplify and fill his shoes? Or do you believe we're walking in two of the most critical elections over the next 2 to 3 years without one of the most profound and influential people in this movement? I just want to get your thoughts on it.
Well, I mean, no one can replace Charlie Kirk. I mean, he was, such a profound intellect, and he did go to, he didn't get a college degree. Instead, he spent his time reading books. He was at 19 years old. That's when he started the Turning Point USA chapter after meeting with someone who had met at CPAC at a Starbucks.
Yep.
There's a book that he wrote called A Time for a Turning Point, which he goes into detail about the beginnings of the organization that he started. And the first year was actually pretty tough for him. I mean, he only raised I think it was a few thousand, and he thought it was going to fail.
So first year that I did the show, a lot of money lost.
Yeah. So, I mean, everyone, has tough beginnings, but he weathered through it. And I mean, wow. I mean, everyone in America definitely knows what Turning Point USA is now. I mean, his death made him a martyr of sorts. And, there's no one who's going to be like him, but there's going to be people who emulate his legacy, who are going to pick up the mic and they're going to continue. And, I mean, definitely Nick Freitas is one of those many individuals who's doing it. And, we even have folks on the pro-life movement. My friend Lydia Taylor Davis, she is a spokesperson for Students for Life of America. She actually used to live in the Carolinas. She's now moved to Virginia. So she's with us, but I've joined her at some of her college campus debates, and she brings a lot of fire on the life issue. And I think it's really important, to have that discussion at the University of Mary Washington, which is up in the Fredericksburg area, and in various other colleges throughout the nation. So we got to look at these rising stars. And she's only 23 years old. So she's a young Gen Zer, and she's making herself known nationally. So folks like her, we got our youth, and we got our senior, seasoned military veterans like Nick Freitas. They're going to carry the mic, and we have various other members of the conservative movement. But so it's not going to be just one person. It's going to be a plethora of individuals who are going to be carrying the mic.
Completely agree with you. Like that's the danger. People are like, well, you can't fill his role. It is being filled, and that's the problem. And when you have emptiness, people will always look for some sort of leadership. They will fill it with something that is a fragment of what it was, with something else that is not as genuine. And although someone might not fit into his size 12s, there's going to be people who are going to fill the space of those size 12s. And it's our job to force those people out of that and bring in people with the true voice of where our country needs to go. And it has to be through God.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's the nuts and bolts of it. That is the one thing our country is missing. And the greatest times in our history is when we put God to the forefront. And whenever we put him on the back burner, whenever we ignore him, whenever we treat him with disdain and without love, some of the worst things happen in our country. And you can go through history and see this. Now, I'm not saying that religion, that's not God. Religion has done a lot of atrocities throughout history, but I'm talking about the Word of God. I'm talking about Western civilization. I'm talking about our morality, which is the Judeo-Christian ethics that you mentioned earlier in the show. I'm going to give you the last word. Go ahead.
Yeah. Nihilism.
Yes.
Atheism.
Yes.
All that leads to a very, very dark path. And, I've actually, I study criminal justice. So I've seen mass murders that have been committed by Satanists and others. And there is a cultural rot that we're seeing. I mean, we're seeing, these trans shooters, there's folks who are gender confused, and they're pulled away from God, and they don't see the value of their life. They don't see the value of other lives. And it's just very unfortunate to see that. And, but yeah, we have to bring folks closer to a higher power, and, so that way they're rooted in morality, because without that, without hope that the higher power brings, I mean, nothing matters, including your own life. So
right, there's no purpose.
Yeah, and we got to pull our youth away from this nihilism, which is self-destructive.
You are going to love this book, and I'm going to give it to you. It's one of my favorites. It's by T.S. Dixon, a good friend of the show, and it's called The Woke Mind Viruses. And this is an extended edition because he references all of his sources, and there's 3,000 of them. T.S. is a mind which you will adore. He is a genius, good friend, and nihilism or however you want to say it, and the Age of Enlightenment, and the movement of religion being replaced by science. Because when you remove people's belief in spirituality and God, you have to replace it with something. This is exactly what we're talking about the empty shoes of Charlie Kirk, is that you may not find a substitute for Charlie Kirk, but the people will find a substitute for Charlie Kirk. And they will listen to anyone who fills that void for them. Well, the same thing happened when they tried to remove religion. And you had, Nietzsche and the overall theory of nihilism, and then it moved into the modern days of Maoist principles and Saul Alinsky. This book really addresses that, and I want to give it to you as a gift. I wasn't going to give it to you because it's my last copy. Now I got to go buy a new one, but you get this because you're going to love it. So that's yours.
Well, I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Yeah, you don't have to reach for it. I'll just throw it on down there. And then I want to give you last word. I know dude. You were going to call me and you're going to be like, "Holy God, that book's awesome."
Just as Elon Musk said, the woke mind virus.
Yes, yeah. So TS is a good dude. He's sat in that chair and he forgot to sign the door. So we're going to have you sign the door. I want to give you last word. I'm going to stay on for a little bit because we want to hit donations and I'd love to have Phillip out of the room when we do these donations so we can avoid any conflict. But
sure.
I want to give you the last moment with the guests and let you address them. And of course, we want to have you back. And it really was a great conversation. I appreciate you giving us the time. It means the world to me.
Oh, I appreciate you having me on. And, again, I'll mention my history website, HamiltonHistoricalRecords.com. I talk about some of my family history on there, including my relation to George Mason IV, who's one of the founding fathers. Actually, one of his relatives went with Governor Spotswood to explore the western frontier of Virginia through the Blue Ridge Mountains in the early 1700s. And there's a pyramid, which is a historical marker that talks about the Knights of the Golden Horseshoe right in front of the Shenandoah National Park entrance on Highway 33. So I always love seeing that every time I'm driving through there. It's only 45 minutes north of where I live in Charlottesville. So it's some proud family history I have out there. But certainly, hope you can check out my website. There's no paywall for it. I do it just because I want folks to learn about American history, and especially on Americans' 250th anniversary. It's important for us as Americans to know where we came from.
Yeah. Man, I'm going to wish you the best of luck. I would love to walk you out, but once again, I'm going to take a quick commercial break just to kind of get us about 3 minutes to get up and have you meet Olivia. She wants to meet you, sign the door, shake your hand, and we got to get you out of here because you stayed late for us and we really appreciate it. So,
but you're welcome.
Once again, Phillip, best of luck to you, and we'll see you guys in just a few minutes. We're going to take a quick break and then we'll come back and we'll wrap the show up.
Hi, I'm Olivia Spear, host of The Dumb Show. For 3.5 years, we never asked for donations, but after Facebook demonetized us for speaking the truth, we've had to turn to the one thing big tech can't cancel: you.
I'm Hayden, Matt and Olivia's daughter. This show's never chased sponsors or sold out. We've built something honest, and it's thanks to you.
I'm Ethan, their son. Every share, every dollar, every message, you're the reason we can keep calling out the BS and bringing color back to the world going gray.
If you want to help, we take PayPal, Venmo, or snail mail. You can send it to P.O. Box 2, Round Hill, Virginia 20142.
Can't donate? No problem. Just share the show with someone who needs to hear it.
Thanks for helping us stay loud, proud, and completely uncensored. You can donate at thedumbshow.com/donate.
You know what happens when you turn the dial harder? You can make a harder grimace. The harder you grimace, the more effective it is.
You tighten it so frickin' I can't do it. I can't untighten
That's
it.
what she said.
That's what she's. Oof. Oof. Coming in with it. Pound it. Pound it. Pound.
Child gets 15.
Ethan, you look like a hippie.
Totally tubular.
You know this is recording, right?
Okay, let's go. Smile. Donate. Don't start with me. Donations. Every time you don't smile, I'm going to punch you in the ribs. Donations. Take one. Scene one. Ready, set. Ethan.
Break.
Ready, don't screw it up.
Okay.
Ethan, don't mess this up. Ready, set, action. No, whoa, director calls action, not some stupid toddler.
But we've built something.
There's no
honest.
but there. Why do you've been doing this since you were 2 years old. Try it again.
Just share the show with someone who needs to hear it.
He's so much better than you at
It's
everything.
better than all
Hayden,
of us.
he's just like, even, it's just, go ahead, Hayden.
Thanks for helping us stay loud, proud, and completely uncensored.
That's a wrap. Well done, Spear family. I bet we make no money.
But I'm gonna owe them money without.
Hayden, do your thing again.
Oh yeah, cut it.
Baby shark, doo 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 doo.
What is going on, everybody? Oh, Hayden, you're in the shot. That's okay. Say hi, wave. Welcome to the Don't Unfriend Me show. Just had Phillip Hamilton on. You can go over to Phillip's site at Hamilton for VASenate.com. And please do me a favor and go and support him. He is one hell of a good dude. He's taken off. I had a chance to say goodbye. He just got done signing the door. And hopefully we get him back on again. I'd love to do that. I hope everyone's doing well. We are desperately behind goal. And now that Phillip's out of here, we had hoped to assist with that funding and fundraising for Phillip, but we would have to do that autonomous from the show. So if you're looking to help the Don't Unfriend Me show, know that we are going to make a nice contribution to Phillip's campaign either way, because we really believe that he is one heck of a good dude. I hope you guys enjoyed that. You know, it's rare that you get to be face to face with a candidate for 2 hours and learn not just who they are as a person, but kind of their platform. Very down to earth guy, very, very affable, and very intelligent. So we're looking forward to meet with him in the future before his races. Remember, if you did not know, we have got a few shows booked that are very similar to that. Phillip Hamilton was tonight. We have Brian Cook on the 26th coming up on next Thursday. Jessica Lynch, that one I'm really looking forward to, which we'll have Jessica on that Tuesday. Damani Felder will be on April 3rd, and I'm going to be on his show too. He's going to be on every month now. Once a month he's going to come on. And then the Older Millennial will be on April 6th, the day after my birthday. So we're going to have him here as well. He is a conservative voice over on Twitter and one hell of a good guy. I figured that I would try to go ahead and try to hit gold tonight and throw a little bit out of this. I've got about 17 minutes. We'll see if we can do it. I don't have a lot of high hopes. That's the hard part about doing this, is because you get in these long conversations, and unfortunately, you know, you can't talk about, hey, don't forget to donate and stuff like that, and people forget, and that's totally fine. We were kind of aware of that happens once in a while. So we're going to see what we can do about hitting it. And I'm going to do a couple pieces that we were going to do with Phillip, but we just got talking about him and it was more important to me. Want to focus on some conversations that have been going around, and a lot of people saying that Ben Shapiro and Charlie Kirk were in some sort of contentious relationship. I wanted to talk about one thing first, and this was going to be at the top of the hour, but Phillip was so interesting to talk to that I didn't really have a chance to get into this. But we received something in the mail today, and it was really cool to see, and we were not expecting it. And on the wall, you may have seen it behind Phillip, is something we had talked about on the show, is how much I loved President Trump's Iwo Jima statue of the flag raising ceremony that happened on Iwo Jima, and how much I wanted his oversized statue that unfortunately we just didn't realize there was only like 2 or 3 made, and they're like 1,800 pounds and worth a lot of money. And really the second best one that I had seen was from viewers about the Bradford Exchange Iwo Jima statue, and lo and behold, Barry reached out and said, hey, we're going to be sending you something. And it was on our front porch today. And it has taken its rightful place over in the Vietnam and World War II and Korea, World War I memorabilia area. And it looks amazing. So I wanted to thank the Morgensteins for that. They have become very close friends. They also know Phillip and did Phillip's headshots, which is how we got Phillip on our show. So anytime you girls who thought Phillip was handsome and all that can go over to Barry's site and see his headshots, and you'll feel downright okay. Here is Charlie and Ben, a conversation, people saying they didn't have a mutual respect for each other, which I vehemently disagree. They may have disagreed behind the scenes or all of that, but this is proof that there was a mutual respect.
Charlie Kirk, founder of TPUSA, my dude,
After I
you've built...
Switch the audio. Maybe I won't switch the audio. Why is there no audio?
An actually enormous thing. Congratulations. Seriously amazing.
Thank you, Ben. It's great to see you, and thanks for being here. And yeah, it's been kind of a wild journey. You're one of the few people I could say you were at the foundational levels.
I mean, I remember 18-year-old Charlie Kirk going around the David Horowitz Freedom Center at the Breakers trying to meet donors. And I remember saying to every one of those donors, this guy's going to be head of the RNC. And then you just basically built your own RNC. Yeah, we kind of looked at the RNC and we said, maybe we could do something, in our own likeness and image. But no, I mean, glory be to God. It's amazing. And this election cycle was a big test for us. And we were thrilled with the result. I have to say, it's actually incredible. So there was a tape of you from election night when it was announced that President Trump had won. And you got really emotional, and I was moved by it because I know how much work you've put in over the last 10 years just to get to this point and to be so influential in this election. And listen, I mean, you were handed an enormous responsibility, and that's a super hard thing. Yeah. Outside the president and the vice president-elect, outside of that, very few people in this country have had more to do with the success of Donald Trump's re-elect effort. And I think this may have turned around the entire country. So you deserve enormous thanks, enormous kudos. Well done. Well, thank you. I'll throw it back.
So there was a mutual respect and a mutual admiration for them. And they may have found themselves to be competing in the same market for market share with the Daily Wire and TPUSA. But they lived in a copacetic relationship for quite a while. So for people to say that he hated Charlie or Ben hated Charlie or Charlie hated Ben, that's really not for us to judge based upon some interactions that they had together. But he was invited to TPUSA events, and although Charlie may have been seeing some things that he didn't agree with from Israel, that doesn't mean that he abandoned the Israeli people. Just a few days before his assassination, he had written a very long 11-page layout of the steps it would take for the younger generation to embrace Israel as previous generations had. You don't make that effort if you're going to abandon Israel. He was an advocate for Judeo-Christian ethics. He believed in the sovereignty, was a qualified Zionist in his belief structure that all countries deserve their sovereignty. And to say that he, had any other feelings is a ridiculous notion based upon how his public life and how he presented himself. Folks, I really would love to stay on, but unfortunately, we just can't. So we're not going to be able to stay on later tonight. It seems like, this happens from time to time. It's unfortunate, and I really hope that we can make it up. But yeah, we want to try to bring you candidates like this, and we want to try to bring you interviews like this. And it hurts the show sometimes because we don't get the viewership up into high numbers because some people just don't like conversation. Some people want to be entertained, or they want the news, or they want to be seeing something funny. But we try to bring a more intellectual side to our conversations, and sometimes it's just not successful. But I do believe that the show, when Phillip was on, did really well. A lot of people watched it, and that's a good thing, and we'll be happy to do that tonight. But what we can't do is stay on for another hour or so to try to hit goals. So we're going to shove off tonight, say thank you guys so much for everything, and we'll see you next time, and have a good night.
Adjusting transmitter output.
This is the Don't Unfriend Me Show with your hosts, Matt, Leroy, Amy, and Olivia. Geopolitics, military analysis, and election coverage. Coming to you live on all major social media channels at The Dumb Show. Honest, direct, unfiltered. We can agree, we can disagree. Just don't unfriend me.